Hey again, and welcome back to a new video. So today I want to do a legendary comparison for Sha Lin. So I got requested to compare Sand Trap and Recurve, and I think that's fine because Desert Silence is uncommon compared to the other two legendaries, and Desert Silence is also not really working because it's supposed to silence the enemies for 2 seconds, but the enemies are only silenced for 1 second, and sometimes the silence is not working at all. So this is one reason why it's uncommon, and the other reason is because it's kind of a niche legendary, or it's kind of harder to make work to compared to Sand Trap or Recurve. So the first match is a Sand Trap match, and the second match is a Recurve match. But Sand Trap and Recurve aren't that different of a playstyle, so to say. You just improve your already good abilities, I would say. So it's not really a huge difference between playing Sand Trap and a huge difference between playing Recurve. I think there are some situations where or some enemy team compositions where the composition sounds more like Sand Trap, and there's situations where it's more like Recurve. I personally prefer playing Recurve just because I like it more to draw my bow faster. But I also play Sand Trap from time to time. But because they aren't so different in the playstyle, and the one who requested the legendary comparison wanted to also know how to play Sha Lin, when to go in, or which ranges are good for Sha Lin. So that's why I first of all want to talk a little bit about Sha Lin as a champion. And I want to talk about his goals, or in what compositions he's good, and what compositions he might struggle, or something like that, like that basically. So first of all, Sha Lin is obviously a damage champion. So most or all damage champions have as a goal to get out damage, obviously. But don't get me wrong, your goal is not to get out as much damage as possible. So only because your stats say that you got out the most damage doesn't mean you were the best performing damage dealer. Because if it's damage which didn't make an impact or something like that, then it's useless damage you deal. So you want to get out damage, but you want to try with your damage to keep the enemy team low. So you basically want to try to swap your damage, or your focus over the enemy team, so to say. Because you want to try to basically keep everyone low, so it's easier for your flanks to get an opening situation. It's easier for your flanks to finish up kills, because in theory flanks should finish up the kills, and damage dealers should prepare the kills, so to say. Not saying that you are not allowed to finish up kills. You're also allowed, obviously, to finish up kills, because you don't want to let someone alive who would die if you just would shoot them. But the first goal, so to say, is as a damage dealer is to keep the enemy team low and deal damage. So now more to Sha Lin, or what goals Sha Lin has and what he wants to focus on. So Sha Lin deals 1000 damage with a fully drawn arrow after or every 1.5 seconds. So you also could let your bow go a little bit earlier, but then you deal less damage, obviously. And because you deal a lot of damage at once already, because 1000 damage is already a lot of damage, you're also good at shredding shields. So this could something which you want to keep in mind to you could counter into heavy shield compositions. And besides the pressure for shields, or the general pressure because of your already high damage, you now bring a lot of utility. So Sha Lin's kit hasn't been like that since the beginning, so to say. They actually changed his kit, but now he brings a lot of utility because of his cripple on his right click. So this is also something you want to keep in mind, or want to try to make use out to get value out of your cripples, because a cripple is really strong, especially when it's on a that low or that short cooldown, so to say. So now, after understanding maybe what Sha Lin want to do, or what the damage dealer in general want to do, I want to talk about some compositions where Sha Lin might be good at, or where Sha Lin might struggle against. So a good composition where you would want to pick Sha Lin in, or where you could consider picking Sha Lin, is a composition with a lot of tanks having shields. So usually you see, or especially in ranked, you see a lot of double tanks, and if both tanks have shields, or heavy or annoying shields, I would say Sha Lin would be a good pick to kind of counter them, because you don't have to shoot the shield that often to destroy the shield. So kind of a counter into shields could Sha Lin be. Then another thing, because of his cripple, Sha Lin could be, or is really good into most champions relying on their movement and ability, especially if you want to kind of play flank Sha Lin, but I think this is also more uncommon, to cripple the support and kill the support easier. But you're really good, or you're really annoying for Andrew or Eevee, because both, even Bounce or Spuck in some way, because they all rely a lot on their movement abilities, and especially Eevee, because she basically needs to blink around, use her sword to get over the map, because she's so squishy. It's so easy to kill her. And not only that you cripple Eevee, which is really hard for her, you also deal a lot of damage at once to her. So 1000 damage even without Sand Trap, so just 1000 damage is a lot of damage for Eevee, because she only has 1800 HP, so really good counter, really good pressure into Eevee. Compositions where Sha Lin might struggle against are if your own composition already have a lot of invisible champions like Sky, Strix, which is also kinda uncommon. You probably won't pick Strix and Sha Lin, because in some way they are similar. And Ceres, also a little bit uncommon, but Illuminate also works against Ceres. So I've seen some people actually picking Illuminate only for Ceres. So this might be something you also want to keep in mind when thinking about picking Sha Lin. I would say if you have Sky, you probably won't pick Sha Lin, because you both get countered by Illuminate, and this is something you don't want to risk, that you both DPS or flanks get countered by the same item, so to say. So then there are certain champions where you probably won't pick Sha Lin, or you definitely want to be careful when picking Sha Lin. The hardest champion to play against, I guess, is Tyra, because of her mark. She can basically mark you when you are invisible. So if you imagine you're shooting in your ult and she's kind of in range, or she doesn't even have to be in range to actually see you, because you show yourself when shooting in your ult, then your invisibility breaks for the second you shoot, so to say. Then she marks you, and then you aren't invisible anymore. You just get visible for the enemy team again. So this might be something where you don't want to pick Sha Lin in, because Tyra is a really good counter into Sha Lin, brought or given by her marks. So another champion might be Vivian, because of her drones. So her drones also have it really easy to reveal you, or it's annoying for you to get it revealed in general. Strix in some way, because of his flare. It depends a little bit on which legendary he plays. If he plays unauthorized use, then it's not that hard for you, because he can't reveal anymore, but you never know what the enemy Strix is going to play. That's why keep in mind Strix can reveal you. Then Yago in some way, because of her reveal when using her Q in her travel form, and obviously Cassie ult. Some Cassies just save their ult to counter your Sha Lin ult to reveal you. So you still have or keep the advantages of your ult, like walking faster, shooting faster, but you are visible for the enemy team, so keep in mind they can see you, and it's maybe not that easy to hide yourself or something like that. Sha Lin, I would say, his best use is in kind of mid-range, so you could play him definitely in short-range map, and you also could play him in long-range maps, but you always want to try to either keep some distance that you're mid-range, or you close some distance that you're mid-range, because over a distance being too long, so to say, it's hard for you to hit your arrows, because your arrows are projectile arrows, so you have to think a lot about where the enemy could move, where the enemy could go, to actually hit your arrows over a long range. But if the enemy team has a lot of backline DPS standing still, like Nessa, Strix, maybe Victor, if he's playing burst mode, then you could also pick Sha Lin, because they're probably standing still while scoping, or they can't move that fast while scoping, so it's really easy for you to hit them, and you also deal 1000 damage, so you deal a little bit less than a sniper, but still 1000 damage is enough damage to pressure the enemy snipers or the enemy backline. So not saying he's bad or he sucks on long range. It's just harder, or there are some situations where it's actually not that hard if you play against those champions. Then when you're too close, I think it's maybe a little bit too hard, because the enemy moves too fast, or it's hard to see where the enemy actually is, something like that. And obviously if the enemy team has a lot of fast champions, then it's hard for you to hit your arrows, especially when you're struggling with hitting your arrows in general, I would say. Then Sha Lin struggles a little bit against dive, or against sustaining compositions, I would say, because he brings a lot of burst. He brings utility, as I said, but he needs some time to charge his arrows. 1.5 seconds is actually a lot of time to get out 1000 damage. Imagine snipers needing less time, dealing more damage. I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's like that. So 1.5 seconds, actually a lot of time for getting out 1000 damage. And if you just dive Sha Lin and try to kill him fast, he struggles against it, because he would need too long to actually kill you, especially when not playing Sand Trap. So now, finishing talking about the champion in general, I don't know, maybe it was a little bit too long, but I want to start talking about the legendaries itself. So what happens when you pick Sand Trap? You basically gain an additional damage on your right click, so usually right click doesn't do any damage at all. But if you play Sand Trap, your right click deals now 300 damage, and it also explodes in a 20 unit radius. So you don't have to hit your right click or your arrow directly to actually deal the 300 damage. And if you hit your main arrow, so to say, on a real person, on a player, not only an area of impact or area of effect, then you deal 1300 damage. So you gain additional 300 damage, as I said, so you deal 1300 damage at once, which is a lot of damage now. Even before he deals a lot of damage, or he would deal a lot of damage, so to say, but now you just have more burst, so it's easier to finish squishies or finish up kills, and you also decrease in some way the time you probably would need to deal 1000 damage, because you could just let your bow go a little bit earlier, so to say. You don't have to fully charge your arrow to deal the 1000 damage, because if you let it go after a second, maybe you deal normally 700 damage, but because of the extra 300 damage, you now deal 1000 damage, if it makes sense. So that's something which has changed, so you deal more burst damage, so you could just pick it to get out more burst. But you also gain another value, or another ability, so to say. So since your right click now explodes on an area, or in an area, you can still cripple enemies in an area, so you don't have to hit your arrow directly to cripple the enemy teams or the enemy champions. So if you struggle a lot against hitting your arrows, Sand Trap is good, because you still can get out some damage if you don't hit your arrow directly. and you also could cripple them in an area, so it's also way easier to cripple them and make use out of your right click, because usually you maybe are too pressured to now I have to hit the arrow to cripple them, but if you know I can just shoot in an area, you can just easily cripple them without actually hitting. So you could just miss the main arrow, so to say, but hit the other arrow or the arrow on the ground, so to say, to still cripple them. So you when playing Sand Trap, you just bring even more utility for your whole team, because it's just easier to hit your cripples, and you also could cripple more enemies at once if they are stacking up or something like that. So if you would decrease the cooldown of your right click as much as possible, so reduce it by 3 seconds given to your loadout, and you would count how much damage he would deal and how much time it would deal until he has the second cripple up, so to say. So I don't know, starting the timer when hitting the first arrow with your cripple, and stopping the timer after you hit your second cripple, so to say, you deal 4,600 damage over 4.5 seconds. So this already sounds a lot, but when talking about Recurve later on, you will see that Recurve even deals more damage over that time. So Sand Trap sounds like more damage, but it only gives you more burst compared to Recurve, because Recurve gives you more damage over time, if it makes sense. So you want to try to use his burst to burst down enemies, and you want to use your cripple range or cripple area to get out more cripples, get out cripples easier, so to say. This is basically what you want to keep in mind when playing Sand Trap. So, but now to Recurve. I think, as I said, the playstyle of Sand Trap and Recurve isn't that different compared to each other, because you only support or improve your already strong abilities you have in your base loadout or in your base kit. That's why you don't really play that differently. You just want to take care of different things. So when picking Recurve, you draw your bow 25% faster. So usually, as I said, you would need 1.5 seconds to fully draw your bow, but when playing Recurve, you only need 1.1 to 5 seconds to draw your bow, so you deal 1000 damage every 1.1 to 5 seconds. And if you want to do the same count or whatever, as I did for Sand Trap, to compare the both damage numbers, we just say we compared over the same duration, so also 4.5 seconds, because it's the time you need for Sand Trap to get out 2 cripples, so to say, or 2 heavy burst damaging arrows. When playing Recurve, you actually deal 5000 damage over 4.5 seconds. So even in that short amount of time, so 4.5 seconds is not that much, but even in that short period of time, you already deal more damage when picking Recurve, because you have more consistent damage output, because you have more damage over a shorter duration, because you just decrease the time you need to get out your damage, so to say. That's why Recurve just offers more damage over time. So even if it sounds a little bit weird, but Recurve could also be the better pick into Eevee, because I said you deal more damage or more burst damage to Eevee, but you I don't know, you also could just cripple her in an area. You don't have to hit your arrows directly, but when playing Recurve, you also have a cripple in your base kit, so you also could cripple her, and you maybe don't have the time to kill her in time when playing Sand Trap, because she maybe gets resilience later on, and maybe it doesn't make that much of a difference. But when playing Recurve, you have somehow more time, or you decrease the time you have or you need to kill her, because of the shorter duration of your bow draw, so to say. I don't know, it's weird to explain, but I think you can understand what I mean. Like you, because of the shorter time you need to draw your bow, you have it easier to kill Eevee before she blinks back, because you just need less time to get out the same, or kind of the same amount of damage, so to say. And For recurve, it's obviously easier to shred tanks, shred shields or something like that because of the shorter duration of your bow to be fully drawn, something like that. So now to some items you might pick or you could consider on Sha Lin. As I said before, Sha Lin is really good wrecker pick or really good pick to counter the enemies, to counter heavy shield tanks. You could definitely pick wrecker, especially now that wrecker got buffed a little bit. It's a little bit easier for you to actually make use out of wrecker. So wrecker, or I personally like picking wrecker on Sha Lin to destroy the shields easier, to annoy the enemy team more with having wrecker. Then I personally also like picking cauterize, just because for the fact that you basically need cauterize. This is also some task or something you should do as a damage dealer, apply cauterize on the enemy team. This is also why I said you want to spread around your damage, because you also want to spread around cauterize. Yeah, so that's why you want to have cauterize, to make it easier to finish up kills, to apply cauterize on the enemy team, to make it easier for the flanks to finish up kills, or maybe for yourself to finish up the kills you prepared for yourself. Then Sha Lin has a movement ability, but it's not that good. I mean, it's good to hide yourself for a little bit, but if the enemy team gets illuminated, it's really rough for you because they can still see you. So that's why I personally like to increase my general movement speed by 15% with loadout cards, and I also like to pick nimble to be faster, to get out easier out of threatening situations for yourself or something like that. Just make it easier to close or create some distance between you and the enemy because you're so fast, and it just always feels great to need less time to walk around, be faster, and get easier to the enemy team to finish up kills or just retreat easier, faster. I think I don't have to explain it more because it's pretty easy to understand why nimble is a good pick on Sha Lin, or why you might consider picking it, because you're lacking on a good movement ability and you just have a good card to increase your movement speed in general, and nimble or being faster is just a great opportunity in this game. So that's why I personally like to buy nimble. And then I think Sha Lin has a lot of good items, or a lot of items you could consider picking, but other items you could pick on him are morale boost, especially if the enemy team doesn't have a champion countering you, like as I said or explained before, Vivian, Tyra, something like that. And obviously if the enemy team doesn't know about Illuminate or doesn't care about Illuminate, then you also could consider buying morale boost. And I personally also buy morale boost if I get countered, because you lose your invisibility, but so you have to be a little bit more careful when ulting and playing around, but you keep your advantages of your ult. So you still attack faster, you still walk faster. This is something which your ult offers, or which is brought by your ult. So if you're ulting, you increase your movement speed by 30%, and you also attack 50% faster. So you draw your bow 50% faster. You keep all those things, you don't lose them only because you're revered. So this is why I personally like Sha Lin's ult, because Sha Lin's ult is really strong. Now many people underestimate Sha Lin's ult, or underestimate how much value it actually gets, because they maybe don't know about the other things brought or given by his ult. But this is why I like morale boost, because his ult is really strong. Another good item for Sha Lin could be life rip. If maybe your healer doesn't play that much in your range, or in your line of sight, or you don't play in the line of sight of your support, because as I said, you don't want to be that close, but you don't maybe want to be that far away. So maybe you're not in range of your support, so your support has it kind of hard to actually heal you. So that's why you want to pick life rip, to be a little bit more independent of your support, or just have this self-sustain, this kind of self-sustain, because usually you don't have that much self-sustain. I mean, there are some cards where you could add some heal into your loadout or something like that, but I think they aren't that good. I mean, I haven't tried them out, but just in theory I would say they aren't that good. So that's why I think Life Rip, also consider you deal a lot of damage, so Life Rip is about a percentage healing of the damage you deal, so a lot of burst healing for yourself. Obviously, if the enemy team has a lot of heavy CC or annoying CC for you, you could pick Resilience to make it easier because of his movement ability, as I explained before. If you get CC'd, it's hard for you to get out of it because you can't really use your movement ability to get out. So you maybe could try to get out an Eevee ult if you see Eevee is blinking onto you, so just use your movement ability early to retreat a little bit, to withdraw basically, so she can't hit it. Or you could, I don't know, could use it for BK Grumpy if you see you would be in range, use it, get out, something like that. But sometimes, especially Ceres ult or something like that, your withdraw isn't enough to actually get out of the range. That's why I think Resilience is a good pick. Keep in mind that even though Cassie's ult is some kind of CC because she's revealing you, Resilience doesn't help against a Cassie ult, so you can't counter a Cassie ult to be visible for less time, so to say. So now that I talk basically about Sha Lin in general and talked about the things given by Sand Trap and advantages given by Recurve, I think I kind of want to summarize what you want to keep in mind, or when to play which legendary, or what you want to try to use your abilities for. So as I said, Sha Lin is the damage here. You want to try to keep the enemy team low, you want to try to keep them applied by Cauterize, and he deals a lot of damage at once. This is why Rekka could be a good pick on Sha Lin, to just pressure the enemy tanks, to just pressure the enemy shields and destroy them faster, destroy them in time. So now I want to try to clarify a little bit more when to go in on Sha Lin or when to play on range and stuff like that, because it got requested and it doesn't have to do with the legendary you play. It's just a general thing for Sha Lin, and on Sha Lin you have the possibility to choose the battles you want to fight or to get out of the battles you don't want to fight in some way, because you have so many options on which range you want to play. I mean, I said it could be rough on distance, on long distance, because you have projectile shots, but still you don't have any damage fall off. You could play on range if you want. You could play against sniper on range. You also could decide to maybe go in on sniper. It depends how comfortable you feel on hitting your shots on range, or how much the sniper moves during aiming, and all those kind of things. So one situation where you definitely don't want to be up close is when you're with your team, or it's weird to say you don't want to stay with your team. You obviously want to be close with your team, but if you play on a closer map where it's really dangerous for your whole team to group up, then you want to decide to play more in the backline or play more on your own, because then it's really easy for the enemy team to deal just blast damage or area damage and affect or hit your whole team. That's why you don't want to fight in those situations, because it's enough if the rest of your team receives the damage. You don't want to receive any damage you don't have to receive, so to say. You obviously want to get back if you want to get healed and stuff like that, but if you play on really close maps and the enemy team have blasters like Eevee, BK, Damage Gog, all those kind of things, Drogos as well, you don't really want to be that close with your team or want to go in close rooms with your team, because it's too dangerous to group up, because you would just receive full damage. So then you want to stay back. Or in general, I think you want to try to play on mid-range and just poke, maybe get out some damage over mid-range, improve your aim, so to say, that you really are able to play on mid-range. But you also could play Sha Lin as a kind of flank, because he has a cripple, so it's possible for him to go in the backline, cripple the other flank or damage dealer who tries to protect the support, or cripple the support so the support can't use any movement ability. So you have it pretty easy to flank. So in case you don't have a flank because no one picked a flank, or just because you decided to pick two damage dealers or something like that, Sha Lin could be played as kind of flank, because he's able to to pressure the flank, he's able to pressure the backline DPS, he's able to pressure the support, and all those are things which a flank should include to be able to do those things. So that's a situation where you want to go in for Sha Lin. You basically want to, I mean, over the match you recognize or you learn who you want to fight and who you don't want to fight. So if you struggle a lot against a certain champion, yeah, then you obviously want to play on the other side of the map in some way. So you want to try to keep the distance or get close to him if it's a distant champion, so to say. So if you struggle against the sniper on range because they just kill you too fast, or because you can't poke them or whatever, try to get close, cripple them if it's necessary. Just play Sand Trap and deal extra damage on streaks, because the cripple won't affect him, but could deal extra damage to him if you're close, and then it's maybe easier for you to hit your shots. And all those situations are things you want to think about if you want to be close or if you want to go in, cause you could play him really aggressive, but then you have to have a good aim, you have to be able to finish up your kills, you have to be able to get value out of your flank and stuff like that. And you want to try to stay out of crucial situations where your whole team would receive a lot of damage. I think some really good maps for Sha Lin are Jagger Fort, Bright Marsh, Splitstone Curry. I think that's it for the really good maps, or where I feel really comfortable on Sha Lin. Other maps are also good to play him on, but I think there are some maps where it could be rough to play him, maybe Serpent Beach, because he's lagging on an ability to get on high ground. So for the point fight he definitely would be good, or for the other fights on the ground he would be good, but he's not able to contest high ground, especially when you captured, so to say, because he can't get on it. Then I think Frogger is also, or could be rough, because he could need too long to close the distance, get close to the sniper, or because he could just get out sniped by the sniper. But I think there are always situations where you get countered, or where it could be rough. But in my opinion, Sha Lin is a really good DPS. So if you want to learn a DPS, I think Sha Lin is a good DPS to learn. He needs some time to get used to his bow. But if you mastered it, so to say, I think it's really good, because he brings so much utility, brings so much damage. So I think you could pick him on every map and still do great, because he has just a strong base kit and stuff like that. So now to summarize the legendaries, Sand Trap just offers you more burst damage and cripple in an area. So you also could use your right click to finish up kills you usually wouldn't see, because they aren't in your line of sight, but you could just kill them because of the area damage you deal. Sometimes 300 area damage is enough to kill someone, which is really good for Sand Trap, or which is a good thing offered by Sand Trap. Then you could cripple enemies early without seeing them, so maybe Eevee or anyone else having a movement ability to get in, Bouncer Spark, something like that. Cripple them early so they can't really get close to you, they can't really get in, because as I said, if you get dove, it's really hard for you as Sha Lin to survive, because you need too long to de-damage, you don't have a really good movement ability. Or movement ability is okay, it doesn't suck, but it doesn't help you to get out of those situations or survive longer or something like that. Then Recurve offers more consistent damage, or more damage over time compared to Sand Trap, because Sand Trap just brings more burst and makes it easier to make use out of your cripple. But Sand Trap isn't that consistent over a long time. That's why Recurve is maybe the better pick. Especially I feel like if you struggle on hitting your arrows, it doesn't matter if you even miss the one arrow, because you could just hit another arrow, something like that. I mean, it's hard to explain, but Recurve is a little bit more forgiving when missing your arrows. It was kind of hard for me to really split those two legendaries, but when I understood the common right, it was more about the general playstyle of Sha Lin. I think I could help you maybe a little bit. I could make things a little bit clearer. If not, then I'm sorry. But it was really hard for me to split those two legendaries apart, because the playstyle of Sha Lin with those legendaries is so similar, because you just improve your general base kit some abilities of your base kit. So I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope I could help you a little bit maybe. I hope you've had a nice day, and always remember, don't forget, you guys are awesome.